that you won't be able to stop watching. For weary modern souls, Dr. Romantic, the quirky genius doctor of Puldam Hospital, prescribes heartwarming tales of humanity. A couple together for 7 years sees their rose-tinted glasses shatter. Can they keep their relationship alive? Discover the raw stories of youth, work, and love. Beyond what social media can show, experience the vibrant Korea through its hidden gems. Mama, the ultimate K-pop festival for global fans. Find your star in a feast of trendy music and electrifying performances. Now, the whole world enjoys it together.
Knock knock! The magical door to the world of K-animation is swinging wide open. Meet your instant new BFF, the adorable Catch. Tina Ping will have you hooked from the very first glance. Need a hand? Our Robocar Pony Rescue team is always zooming in to save the day. How about tagging along on Pinkfong and Pal's super exciting quest to reclaim their lost magic? With the mysterious life forms Kabion by your side, you can become a Kabion master and save humanity like the total hero. Protecting children's innocence while igniting their boundless imaginations. That's the magic of Korean animation. K-animation, the ultimate bestie for kids worldwide.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has lowered interest rates for the third time this year, as concerns about the job market outweigh fears of inflation fueled by tariffs. The U.S. is now seeking to ask tourists to enter the country through the ESTA visa waiver program to submit additional personal information, including 5 years of their social media history. This stems from an executive order President Donald Trump signed earlier this year to deny entry to foreigners who may pose a threat to national security. South Korea's Oceans Minister Chun Jae-soo has stepped down amid allegations that he received payments from the Unification Church. He claimed that the allegations were groundless, but said he would resign in order not to burden the administration. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with the U.S. Federal Reserve that once again cut its benchmark interest rate by a 0.25 percentage points, the third consecutive rate cut this year. Now with the cut, the rate gap with South Korea has narrowed. Our An Sung-jin starts us off.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has cut its benchmark interest rate by 0.25 percentage points, bringing the rate to its lowest level in more than 3 years. It announced on Wednesday that Federal Open Market Committee had lowered the federal funds rate from the previous 3.75 to 4% range to 3.5 to 3.75%. The Fed's decision marks the third consecutive rate cut since September, lowering the rate by a total of 0.75 percentage points this year. It cited an uncertain economy, including a slowdown in employment growth rate as well as rising inflation. Of the 12 voting members, 9 supported the decision while 3 opposed. The Chicago Fed president and Kansas City Fed president argued that the policy rate be left unchanged, while board member Christopher Waller, a close ally of U.S. President Donald Trump, pushed for a deeper 0.5 percentage point reduction.
Everyone around the table at the FOMC agrees that inflation is too high and that we want it to come down. Where the difference is how do you weight those risks and what does your forecast look like? And
regarding future rate cuts, the Fed used more cautious language, saying it would consider the extent and timing of additional adjustments. As the U.S. benchmark rate fell to 3.75% following the Fed's latest decision, the rate gap with South Korea has narrowed to 1.25 percentage points, based on the upper limit of the U.S. rate range. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump spoke about the Fed's decision.
I mean, this guy, the head of the Federal Reserve, is a stiff. He did a Rather, I would say a rather small number that could have been doubled, at least doubled.
On Wall Street, attention is now shifting to who will become the next Fed chair, with Kevin Hassett, head of the White House National Economic Council, considered as a leading candidate. The finalists could come as early as later this month. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's Minister of Oceans and Fisheries, Chun Jae-soo, has resigned following allegations that he received bribes from the Unification Church. Following a trip to the U.S. to promote Korea's bid to host the UN Ocean Conference on Thursday, Chun told reporters that the accusations are absurd and completely unfounded. He also said that the claims are based on false information and it's appropriate to resign for the benefit of the Lee Jae-myung administration and the ministry. The presidential office says President Lee will accept his resignation. It said earlier that the government's stance on responding firmly to such allegations remains unchanged, regardless of political affiliation. Chun allegedly received cash and valuables from the Unification Church in return for a request to promote the construction of an undersea tunnel between Korea and Japan. The National Assembly will open its first plenary session of the December extraordinary session on Thursday afternoon, with the main opposition People Power Party warning it will launch a filibuster on all bills on the agenda. The first item is a revision to the Fair Transactions in Franchise Business Act, which previously triggered a filibuster but is expected to pass under the Democratic Party's lead. Lawmakers will also table 3 additional bills covering expanded access to lower court rulings, limits on banks' use of extra fees on interest rates, and new policy authority in border areas. Under National Assembly rules, a filibuster can only be terminated after 24 hours have elapsed and at least 3/5 of lawmakers vote in favor. With each item requiring a separate vote to end each filibuster, it could take days before all the bills are voted on and passed. And amid mounting public pressure over the massive data breach at e-commerce giant Coupang, the company's CEO has decided to step down. Meanwhile, the Korean government has announced measures to prevent such occasions from happening again, as the police continues to conduct their search and seizure operations at the company's headquarters. Our Park Go-nu reports.
11 days after Coupang's massive data leak came to light, the company's CEO Park Dae-jun stepped down on Wednesday, saying he would take responsibility. While some see the move as effectively a dismissal, for now Harold Rogers, CEO and general counsel of the firm's U.S. headquarters, Coupang Inc., will take over temporarily to stabilize operations and calm customers down. That comes as civic groups, including the Korea Consumer Federation, held a press conference on Wednesday announcing that they filed for collective dispute mediation, seeking compensation of up to around $340 per person. And as the fallout grows, South Korea's Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, during a national policy coordination meeting on Wednesday, spoke firmly on how the government will deal with the case.
In a digital society, protecting people's personal information is the most fundamental responsibility of platform companies. The government will conduct a swift and thorough investigation into the cause of the incident and take strict action against any violations of the law. We'll also thoroughly prepare institutional reforms.
The Prime Minister's office also announced plans to reinforce information security systems and expand executive accountability, shifting from a reactive approach to a preventive one. As the Personal Information Protection Commission, working under a joint public and private investigation team, looks into whether Coupang violated mandatory safety measure requirements related to the leak, the commission spoke on Wednesday about how the company should revise its clauses.
As Coupang's terms of service are unclear about the company's liability and burden of proof for damages caused by intent or negligence, creating confusion for users, we requested that Coupang revise the clauses.
The commission also said it had asked Coupang to simplify its overly complicated membership withdrawal process. Although these measures are recommendations rather than mandatory orders, Coupang is required to submit the results of its actions within 7 days. Police also continued their search and seizure investigation at Coupang's headquarters on Wednesday morning, marking the second day of the raid after officers spent 10 hours on site the day before. Investigators say more time is needed as the massive data has been difficult to secure. given that the leak is believed to have taken place over several months. 박건우, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung presided over a semiconductor strategy meeting on Wednesday with his ministers and industry insiders, amid plans to strengthen South Korea's global presence in the industry. Our correspondent Song Yu-jin reports.
With what's seen as high-tech changing at breakneck speed, President Lee Jae-myung says the semiconductor industry is the way forward for South Korea.
어쨌든 대한민국도 잠깐의 혼란을 벗어나서 이제 새롭게 도약해야 되는데 산업 경제 발전이 그 핵심이라고 생각이 되고 그중에서도 반도체 분야가 아무래도 우리가 매우 경쟁력을 가지는 전망 있는 영역으로 생각됩니다.
At a time when the fight for semiconductor supremacy is being described as a war between countries, President Lee chaired a meeting with ministers and industry insiders on Wednesday to discuss ways to boost South Korea's competitiveness. Lee stressed the need to build a robust semiconductor ecosystem.
전 무방 산업들도 그렇고 지금 주로 논의되는 소위 소부장, 소재 부품 장비 분야는 해외 의존도가 매우 높다는 얘기들도 있고.
Although South Korea is a global leader in chip manufacturing, it trails competitors such as Japan and the US when it comes to materials, components, and equipment technology and production. To address this, the government plans to provide expanded fiscal and financial support for semiconductor materials and component suppliers. It will also launch the Trinity Fab, an evaluation to mass production chip fabrication plant in Yongin City, Gyeonggi-do Province by 2027. Another major initiative is expanding semiconductor infrastructure beyond the capital region.
For stable growth and a strong supply chain, we can no longer concentrate the semiconductor industry only in the capital region.
The industry ministry plans to establish what it calls the Southern Semiconductor Belt, connecting the cities of Gwangju, Busan, and Gumi. Gwangju will serve as a hub for advanced packaging, Busan for power semiconductor production, and Gumi for materials and components. So the question now is whether what was discussed this time will propel South Korea into the Lee administration's goal of the world's top two semiconductor powers. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
The U.S. House of Representatives has passed the annual defense policy bill for the next fiscal year, which restricts the Trump administration from unilaterally reducing the size of U.S. forces in Korea. The U.S. National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, for the fiscal year 2026, approved on Wednesday local time, reportedly includes that the authorized budget may not be used to reduce the number of U.S. troops stationed in South Korea, below the current level of 28,500. It also specifically says funds may not be used to complete the transfer of wartime operational control between South Korea and the United States in a manner that deviates from the mutually agreed upon plan. Having passed the House, the bill will take effect once it passes the Senate and is signed by President Donald Trump. A senior South Korean diplomat says she will urge the United States to move quickly on a new agreement that would allow Korea to enrich uranium and reprocess spent nuclear fuel for peaceful purposes. Second Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jin-ah made the comments as she arrived in Washington on Wednesday for the 10th Senior Economic Dialogue with the U.S. Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs, Jacob Hellberg. Kim said that since both sides have already reached an understanding on enrichment and reprocessing, she will push for the agreement to be implemented without delay. Last month, the Trump administration signaled support for a process that could lead to South Korea's civil uranium enrichment and spent fuel reprocessing. South Korea is currently barred from both activities under its nuclear cooperation pact with the United States. And foreigners allowed to travel to the United States without a visa could soon be asked to provide 5 years of social media history, as Washington is now seeking to require tighter screening for travelers entering through the ESTA visa waiver program. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Trump administration is moving to tighten screening for travelers entering the United States through the ESTA visa waiver program. ESTA stands for Electronic System for Travel Authorization, which allows citizens of eligible countries to visit the United States for up to 90 days without a visa. A new notice posted Wednesday by U.S. Customs and Border Protection outlines a proposal that would require applicants to submit social media information from the past 5 years. The agency says it's seeking public comment for 60 days on the plan. The proposal stems from an executive order President Donald Trump signed in January to strengthen protections against foreign terrorists and other national security threats. If implemented, the changes would significantly widen the scope of information reviewed during the travel authorization process. According to the notice, social media accounts would become a mandatory part of every ESTA application. CBP is also considering the addition of what it calls several high-value data fields. These include personal and business phone numbers used in the last 5 years, email addresses used in the last 10 years, and detailed information about applicants' family members, including names, dates, and places of birth, residences, and phone numbers. The agency would also have the authority to request biometric data when needed, including fingerprints, DNA, and iris scans. Another major change is the plan to decommission the current ESTA website and shift all applications to a mobile app, which would become the exclusive platform for submitting new requests. Public comments on the proposal must be submitted by February 9th. Once the review period closes, the administration is expected to move ahead with implementation. If approved, the new requirements would mark one of the most extensive expansions of data collection in the history of the visa waiver program. 이승재, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump has said American forces have seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela as tensions escalate between Trump and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. Coast Guard, supported by the Navy, carried out the seizure on Wednesday, with personnel transported by helicopter from the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. A day earlier, U.S. fighter jets flew over the Gulf of Venezuela in their closest pass to the country's airspace during the current pressure campaign against Maduro. It remains unclear who owns the tanker or what flag it was sailing under. Trump said the U.S. would, quote, keep the oil abroad. Staying with Venezuela, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado was absent from Wednesday's Nobel Peace Prize ceremony in Oslo. Her daughter Ana Karina Sosa accepted the award as Machado said she could not arrive in time. The Wall Street Journal reports she left Venezuela by sea for Curaçao with U.S. support on Tuesday. And the AP reports that she has now arrived in Oslo, where she greeted supporters from a hotel balcony early on Thursday. Machado has been in hiding since January, when she was briefly detained after joining a protest in Caracas, a day before President Nicolas Maduro was sworn in following a disputed election. She was awarded the Nobel Prize for her work promoting democratic rights in Venezuela. In Morocco on Wednesday, 2 adjacent 4-story buildings collapsed overnight in the city of Fez, killing 22 people. Authorities said 16 others were injured and taken to hospital, and the neighborhood was evacuated. The buildings, constructed in 2006, housed 8 families. Officials said the cause remains unclear and an investigation is underway. In the UK, best-selling author Sophie Kinsella has died at 55, her family said on Wednesday. Kinsella, known for the Shopaholic series of books, was diagnosed in 2022 with glioblastoma, an aggressive brain cancer. Her books have sold more than 50 million copies worldwide and been translated into over 40 languages. Writers including Jojo Moyes, Jodi Picoult, and Adele Parks paid tribute, while her publisher said she leaves, quote, a unique voice and a significant literary legacy. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Morning commuters in the capital area might have woken up with the sound of thunder. Morning showers should gradually let up. However, the East Coast will see rain from this afternoon into tomorrow morning. Mountainous regions in Gangwon-do could see snow instead, with up to 10 centimeters expected. The snow will be wet and heavy, and the snow will come down hard from late tonight into tomorrow morning. This afternoon will be as warm as yesterday in the capital, topping out at 8 degrees. Warmer in Daegu under sunnier skies this afternoon with stronger winds, and the air quality will be bad at times in most parts. Behind this band, the rain and snow freezing air moves in with sub-zero temperatures expected tomorrow morning, and heading into the weekend, we are looking at another round of rain or snow across Korea. Plan accordingly for your weekend.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.